The moment Ethan saw that birthmark on her neck, 205 years of oblivion crumbled in 3 seconds. His soul screamed a name his mind didn't know. Isabella. It was a Wednesday, 10:30 in the morning. In the kitchen of Blackwood Manor, Emily Carter was trying to balance a pot of scalding water while holding recipes in her other hand. She was new there, only her second day as a cook, 29 years old, a single mother to a 4-year-old girl with special needs, Lily. Lily depended on expensive therapies. Emily depended on this job. She couldn't afford to make a mistake. The pot slipped. Scalding water splashed across her left arm. Emily cried out. The pain was electric. It burned. It burned so badly. She dropped everything. Pots crashed to the floor with a metallic bang. Water spread across the Italian marble floor. Emily clutched her burned arm. Tears streamed down her face, not just from the pain, but from the fear. Fear of being fired on her second day. Fear of Lily going without treatment. Fear of ending up back on the streets. Ethan Blackwood was on the second floor when he heard the scream. He was 38 years old, CEO of a $400 million hotel empire, a widower for 3 years, father to a 5-year-old boy, and completely incapable of feeling anything since his wife died. Cold, calculating, distant. Until that scream. Something in that scream pierced him. It wasn't just pain. It was desperation. It was vulnerability. It was something he knew. Ethan rushed down the stairs. He burst into the kitchen. He saw Emily on the floor, cradling her arm, weeping, and without understanding why, without being able to stop himself. He ran to her. He knelt beside her. He gently took her arm. The skin was red, starting to blister. "I need to cool it," he said, his voice strangely trembling. He was never tremulous. "Get up. I'll take you to the sink." Emily looked at him in shock. The CEO was helping? The man who didn't even look at the staff was kneeling beside her. She tried to stand but stumbled. The pain throbbed. Ethan, without thinking, put his arm around her waist to support her, and in that first touch, something impossible happened. A shiver, intense, inexplicable, shot up both their spines simultaneously. Ethan froze. Emily held her breath. Their eyes met. For a second, just a second, the world stopped. There was no manor. There was no kitchen. There was just the two of them, and an overwhelming feeling that they knew each other, that they had always known each other, that they should never have been separated. Ethan guided her to the sink. He turned on the cold water. He placed her arm underneath. Emily moaned in pain, but something in Ethan's presence calmed her, as if her body recognized safety in him, as if her soul knew he would never hurt her. He studied her face. Emily was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't just that. It was something else, something in her eyes, something in the curve of her face, something that made his heart beat wrong, painfully, in a way it hadn't beaten in 3 years. Emily's hair was tied up in a bun, but with the commotion. Some strands had escaped and fell down her neck. Ethan, without thinking, without realizing what he was doing, reached out his hand. He gently brushed the hair away from her neck. He wanted to see if she was hurt anywhere else. He wanted to check for more burns. He wanted to. And then he saw it. Signs on the left side of Emily's neck, just below her ear, a birthmark, small, light brown, perfectly formed, in the shape of a crescent moon. Ethan froze, completely froze. His fingers stopped in midair, millimeters from her neck. His breath caught. His heart exploded in his chest, because that birthmark, that exact shape, that precise location, he knew it. He knew it not as someone who sees, but as someone who has touched, as someone who has kissed, as someone who has loved. The kitchen disappeared. Ethan was no longer in the manor. He was somewhere else. Another time. He saw flashes. Fast. Intense. Devastating. A prison. Cold stone. Darkness. Shackled hands. And a woman. Period dress. Hair up. Crying. She approached him. Touched his face. Kissed his neck. Whispered promises. And then she showed him her neck. The birthmark. The mark. "I will recognize you by this," she said, "in every life. I will recognize you." Ethan stumbled 2 steps back. His hand trembled. His face paled. He looked at Emily as if he was seeing her for the first time, and at the same time, as if he had known her for centuries. Emily noticed the change. She turned to him, still holding her arm under the water. "What is it? Is something wrong?" Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He couldn't speak. The words were stuck along with memories that shouldn't exist, that couldn't exist. He finally whispered, his voice broken. "That birthmark." Emily automatically touched her neck. "This? I've had it since I was born. Why?" Ethan took another step back. His legs were weak. I've seen that birthmark." Emily frowned, confused. "What do you mean? Do you know me?" "No." Ethan shook his head, desperate. "I don't know you. I've never seen you before in my life. But that birthmark." He pointed, his hand shaking. He swallowed hard. He swallowed again. "I've kissed that birthmark." Absolute silence. The water continued to run in the sink. The kitchen clock continued to tick, but between Ethan and Emily, time stood still. She stared at him, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. "What did you say?" Ethan retreated further. He collided with the central island of the kitchen. His face was pale. Sweat formed on his forehead. He gripped the edge of the marble to steady himself. "I don't know." His voice came out in a panic. "I don't know why I know that, but I do. I've kissed that exact spot. And then the word escaped. Without permission. Without control. It tore from Ethan's throat as if yanked by an invisible force. "Isabella." Emily froze. That name. Why did that name pierce her chest like a knife? Why did immediate tears well up in her eyes? Why did her whole body tremble as if it recognized something terribly important? "Who's Isabella?" she whispered. Ethan couldn't answer, because he didn't know. He didn't remember anyone with that name. He had never met an Isabella. And at the same time, he knew exactly who she was. He knew she was important. He knew she was everything. He turned and left the kitchen. He walked fast, almost running. He climbed the stairs. He locked himself in his study. He sat in his leather chair. He put his hands over his face, and for the first time in 3 years, Ethan Blackwood wept. He didn't know why. He didn't know what was happening. But his body knew. His soul knew. He had found something. Someone. And the terror of losing her again was unbearable. In the kitchen. Emily turned off the water. She looked at her burned arm. The physical pain was there, but it was nothing compared to the strange ache that tore through her chest. She touched the birthmark on her neck, and for the first time in her life, that birthmark seemed to mean something, and something big, something terrifying. Have you ever felt that? Felt like you know someone you just met? That you recognize something impossible? That your body reacts to a person as if it's loved them before it. Emily felt it, and she couldn't stop crying. Mrs. Henderson, the housekeeper of Blackwood Manor for 25 years, walked into the kitchen. She saw Emily crying. She saw the mess. She saw the burned arm. What happened here? Emily wiped her tears. I burned myself. I'm sorry for the mess. I'll clean it up. I will. Mrs. Henderson saw the girl's face. She saw something beyond the physical burn. She saw fear, confusion, and something else, something she recognized. She had worked for 3 generations of the Blackwood family. She knew the history of the manor. She knew the portraits in the attic. She knew the legends. And when she looked at Emily, especially at the birthmark on her neck, something clicked. Come with me, Mrs. Henderson said softly. Let's take care of that arm, and after. I need to show you something. Emily followed her to the service room. Mrs. Henderson applied ointment to the burn, bandaged it gently, and then looked into the girl's eyes. How long have you been working here? 2nd day, Emily responded, her voice small. I know I messed everything up, but Mrs. Henderson shook her head. It's not about that. It's about Mr. Blackwood. Did you notice how he reacted? Emily hesitated, then nodded. He said strange things. About my birthmark. About having kissed it before. He must be crazy. I know. But You felt like it was true. Mrs. Henderson completed. Emily looked at her, shocked. How do you know? Because I've seen it before. Mrs. Henderson sat down beside her. Not exactly this, but similar things. This manor has history, old history, and sometimes, and very rarely, the past bleeds into the present. What do you mean? Mrs. Henderson took a deep breath. The Blackwood family has been on this land for 200 years, since 1820. And there are stories. Stories of impossible love, of tragedies, of promises that cross generations. Emily felt a chill. 1820. Why did that year echo in her soul? Mrs. Henderson continued. There was a countess, Isabella Blackwood. She lived in this manor. She was young, beautiful, rich, and she fell in love with a poor musician hired to play at her soirees. Ethan, his name was. The name pierced Emily. Ethan, like the CEO, like the man who had just said he'd kissed her birthmark. Coincidence? Her family accused him of theft, Mrs. Henderson said, her voice sad. It was a lie, but he was convicted, hanged in 1820. And Isabella, they say, died of heartbreak 6 months later. They say she visited him in prison on his last night, that she made a promise, that she swore to find him in another life. Emily was trembling now. This is just a story. Legend. It can't be real. Mrs. Henderson looked at the birthmark on her neck. It may not be, but Mr. Blackwood has never behaved like that. Never. He's been cold for 3 years, since he lost his wife. Doesn't look at anyone, doesn't feel anything. And then you arrive, and he runs out of the kitchen, crying. How do you know he was crying? Because I saw him going up the stairs. Mrs. Henderson held Emily's hand. And because I know that look. The look of someone who has just seen a ghost. Or worse, someone who has just seen a love they lost 200 years ago. Emily pulled her hand back. This is crazy. Reincarnation doesn't exist. Soulmates from past lives don't exist. This is... Mrs. Henderson stood up. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just coincidence, but if I were you, I'd be careful. Because stories that start like this rarely end well. Unless what? Unless this time, the ending is different. Emily was left alone in the room. She looked at her bandaged arm. The physical pain was manageable, but the pain in her chest a key, the pain of feeling like her entire life had been just waiting for someone, for Ethan, for a love she never knew she lost. She shook her head. This is ridiculous. I barely know this man. He's my boss. I'm a cook. He's a millionaire. I have a daughter. I don't have time for fantasies about past lives. But when she closed her eyes, Emily saw things, flashes, quick. A stone prison, a man in shackles, her in an old dress, him looking at her with despair, and his last words, "I will find you. In every life, I will find you." Emily opened her eyes. Tears were flowing again. Why did it feel so real? Why did it feel like it wasn't fantasy, but memory? Meanwhile, in the office, Ethan opened his laptop, typed into Google with trembling hands. Isabella Blackwood, 1820. Results appeared. Historical archives, documents from colonial Buenos Aires. And there it was, Isabella Maria Blackwood, Countess. Born 1796 and died 1821. Cause of death, heartbreak. And along with her, mention of a musician, Ethan Fernandez, hanged 1820, accused of theft, innocent. Ethan read and reread. His heart was pounding. How did he know this name without ever having researched it? How did he know the story without ever having read it? And that birthmark. He closed his eyes, saw it again. Isabella in prison, showing her neck, the mark. The birthmark in the shape of a crescent moon. "I will recognize you by this." His phone rang. It was his secretary. "Mr. Blackwood, your meeting in 15 minutes. "Cancel it," Ethan said, his voice hoarse. "Cancel everything today." He hung up, stared at the screen, at the names. Isabella, Ethan, 1820. And the new cook downstairs, Emily, with the same birthmark, the same face, the same soul. Ethan put his head in his hands. If I'm going crazy, then so be it. But if I'm not, if this is real, if she's really... He couldn't complete the thought. It was too impossible, too terrifying. And at the same time, it was the only thing that had made sense since his wife died. As if his soul knew he was waiting, not for another person, but for the right person, for the only one, for Isabella, for Emily. That night, Emily returned to the small apartment she shared with her daughter. Lily was with the neighbor. She picked up the girl that thanked her, went inside, gave Lily a bath, made food, put her daughter to sleep, and then, alone in the tiny room, Emily cried. Cried because she didn't understand what was happening. Cried because she felt things she shouldn't feel. Cried because when Ethan touched her waist, when he brushed her hair aside, when he looked into her eyes, she knew in the depths of her soul, that that man was hers. Always had been. Always would be. But how? How could a man she barely knows be hers? A rich, powerful man, who lives in another world. A man who would never look twice at a poor cook with a special needs daughter. And yet, her body recognized him. Her soul screamed. And that birthmark on her neck, which had always been just a meaningless birthmark, now burned. As if it had been sealed there for centuries. As if it were more than just a birthmark, more like a promise. The next day, Emily barely slept a wink. She arrived at Blackwood Manor at 6 in the morning. She went straight to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast, trying to focus, trying not to think about Ethan, not to think about what he'd said, not to think about the name Isabella. At 7:30 he came downstairs. Emily felt it before she even saw him. She felt his presence, like a magnet pulling her in. She turned. Ethan was standing in the doorway of the kitchen, staring at her. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept either, as if he too had spent the entire night fighting the impossible. They looked at each other. Neither of them spoke. But they didn't need to. Because in that silence, in that look, everything was there. Recognition, fear, desire, and above all, the absolute certainty that they knew each other, that they had always known each other, that 205 years ago, something happened, something ended badly, and now, in some incomprehensible way, they had a second chance. Ethan took a step forward. Emily held her breath. He opened his mouth to speak. And then, Mercedes' voice echoed from the hallway. "Mr. Blackwood, your son is awake." The moment shattered. Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, turned and left the kitchen. But before disappearing, he looked back at Emily and whispered a single word, a word that made no sense, and at the same time made perfect sense. Isabella. Emily touched the birthmark on her neck, and she knew. Nothing would ever be the same, because the past wasn't buried. It was alive. It was here, and it demanded resolution. The next few days were torture. Ethan avoided the kitchen, avoided Emily, but he couldn't avoid the dreams. Every night, the same sequence. He was in a prison, cold, dark, damp, smelling of death and despair. His hands were shackled above his head, heavy chains, wrists bleeding. He was tired, defeated, waiting for the death that would come at dawn. And then she would enter. Isabella, wearing a dark blue dress, her hair loose, her face stained with tears. She had bribed the guard. She had minutes, just minutes, to say goodbye to the man she loved, to the musician who had stolen her heart at summer soirees, to the man her family destroyed with a false accusation. Isabella ran to him, embraced his broken body, cried against his chest, and Ethan, even shackled, even condemned, felt peace, because she was there, because she loved him, because, for a moment, he wasn't alone. "I will find you," she whispered, "in another life, in every life. I will search for you, and when I find you, I will recognize you." She kissed his neck, the birthmark he had there, small, crescent-shaped. "That's why," she said, "I will always know it's you." Ethan would wake up screaming, sweaty, his heart racing, and that birthmark. He saw it clearly, saw Isabella kissing it, saw the promise, saw everything. And then he would see Emily, the same birthmark, the same place, and he understood. He understood that it wasn't fantasy, it was memory. Emily also dreamed. She saw herself in a period dress, saw a prison, saw a man, dark hair, desperate eyes. She embraced him, cried, and woke up with her pillow wet, with a broken heart, with a feeling of loss so profound that it hurt, physically. Lily, her 4-year-old daughter, looked at her in the morning. "Mummy's sad," she said, her voice small. Emily forced a smile. "No, sweetie, Mummy's fine." But Lily, with that special intuition of children, especially children like her, shook her head. "Mommy lost someone, but you'll find them again." Emily froze. How did Lily know? A week after the incident, Ethan finally came down to the kitchen again. It was late, 11 at night. He thought Emily would have already left, but she was there, cleaning, finishing up her work. And when she turned and saw him, the world stopped again. They looked at each other. Ethan took a deep breath. "We need to talk." Emily nodded. Her eyes were tired, sunken, as if she hadn't been sleeping well either. "I know." Ethan pulled out a chair, sat down at the kitchen table. Emily sat across from him. The distance between them was small physically, but immense emotionally, because both were afraid. Afraid of what they would say, afraid of what it would mean, afraid of accepting the impossible. "Have you been dreaming?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Emily hesitated, then nodded. "About you, about a man in 1820, in a prison." She looked down. "I embrace him. I cry. And when I wake up, I feel like I've lost something precious." Ethan closed his eyes. The pain in his chest was physical. "Me too. I dream of a woman. Isabella. She visits me before my execution, promises to find me." He opened his eyes. "And then I wake up and I see you. And I know that it's her, that you are her." Silence. Just the heavy breathing of both of them. The kitchen clock ticking away seconds that felt eternal. "This is crazy," Emily whispered. "Reincarnation doesn't exist. Past lives don't exist. This can't be real." "But it is," Ethan said firmly. "I researched it. Isabella Blackwood existed. Ethan Sterling existed. They were real. And we." He pointed between them. "We are them." Emily shook her head. "I can't accept this. I can't. You're my boss. I'm your employee. You're rich. I'm poor. I have a daughter to take care of. I can't." "And yet, you feel it," Ethan cut her off. "Feel that you know me. Feel that you love me. Feel that we're bound to each other in a way that transcends reason." Emily started to cry, silent tears streaming down her face. "I feel it. God help me. I feel it. But I can't act on it. I can't risk my job. I can't risk my daughter's future because of," she gestured between them, "because of fantasies of past lives." "It's not a fantasy," Ethan insisted. He leaned forward and touched her hand. And at the moment of touch, both felt it. Electricity. Connection. Something that went beyond the physical. "Isabella," he whispered. "Please." "Don't call me that." Emily pulled her hand away. "My name is Emily. I am Emily, not Isabella. Not a countess who died 200 years ago. I'm real. I'm here. And I need this job." She stood up. "So please, forget this. Forget the birthmark. Forget the dreams. Forget everything." She left the kitchen. Ethan stayed alone, his head in his hands. And for the first time since his wife died, Ethan Blackwood felt something beyond emptiness. He felt pain. The pain of knowing that he had found his soulmate and that she was rejecting him. Not because she didn't feel it, but because she felt it too much and was afraid. What would you have done if you found someone your soul recognized, but your circumstances said it was impossible? Fight or give up? Emily was fighting against herself, against destiny, against 205 years of longing she didn't understand. Mercedes watched everything from afar, saw Ethan lost, saw Emily crying, and she knew that they needed help. Something concrete. Something to prove they weren't crazy, that the connection was real. And Emily knew exactly where to find it. In the attic of Blackwood Manor, 2 days later. Mercedes sought out Emily. She found her in the kitchen, as always. "I need you to help me with something in the attic," Mercedes said casually. "There are heavy boxes. I need some young arms." Emily agreed. She followed Mercedes to the third floor. They climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. The place was dusty, filled with antique furniture, portraits covered in sheets, boxes stacked high. 200 years of the Blackwood family's history. Sleeping there, Mercedes went straight to a specific box, in the corner, covered by a tarp. She uncovered it. Inside, old books, diaries, yellowed letters. "I need you to organize this," Mercedes said. "These are historical documents as important to the family." She looked Emily in the eyes. "Especially the diaries of Countess Isabella. Maybe you'll find something interesting." Emily freezed. Isabella. That name? Again. "Do you know what you're doing?" Mercedes smiled gently. "I'm giving you the truth. What you do with it is up to you." Mercedes went downstairs, leaving Emily alone in the attic, with the box, with the diaries, with the truth. Emily took a deep breath. Her hands trembled as she picked up the first diary. Leather cover, yellowed with age. She opened it. The handwriting was delicate, feminine. And at the top of the first page, Isabella Maria Blackwood, 1819. Emily read, page by page, entry by entry. Isabella wrote about her life, about balls, about colonial Buenos Aires society, about obligations and expectations. And then, on the page for June 1819, it appeared. "Today I met a musician, Ethan Blackwood. He plays the guitar as if he's talking to God, and when he looked at me, my heart stopped. I know it's inappropriate. I know I'm a countess and he is poor, but something in his eyes, something in his smile, makes me feel like I know him, that I've always known him." Emily read, with tears streaming down her face, because she recognized the feeling. She recognized the confusion. She recognized everything. Isabella had felt the same. 200 years ago. She continued reading. Months of entries. Isabella falling in love. Secret meetings. Stolen kisses. Midnight music. And always, always, the mention of the birthmark. "Ethan loves my birthmark," she wrote. "He says it's shaped like a crescent moon, that it's perfect, that he would recognize me by it anywhere, in any life." Emily touched her own birthmark. Isabella's words echoed, "in any life." And then came the tragedy. The entries became desperate. "My family found out. They accused Ethan of stealing. It's a lie. He would never steal, but they don't care about truth. They care about property. And I am their property." The last entry was from October 1820. "Tomorrow they hang Ethan, my love to you, my everything. I visited him tonight in prison. I bribed the guard. I had 10 minutes to say goodbye to the man I love. I held him. I cried, and I promised that I would find him again, in another life, and so that he would recognize me. I showed him my birthmark, the mark he loves so much. I said, I will recognize you by your eyes, and you will recognize me by this crescent moon birthmark, our promise, our sign, until we meet again. My love." And after that, nothing. The diary ended. Emily leafed through the following pages, all blank. Isabella never wrote again, because 6 months later and she died, of heartbreak, of a broken heart, of lost love. Emily closed the diary. Her hands were trembling. Tears fell freely, because it wasn't fantasy. It wasn't imagination. It was real. Isabella and Ethan were real. The love was real. The tragedy was real. And the promise. The promise was real too. She touched the birthmark again. Our promise. Our sign. The attic door opened. Emily turned. Ethan was there, standing, looking at her, Mercedes must have told him. "You found it," Ethan said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Emily nodded. She held up the diary. "I read everything. Te hurtatos, Isabella. She loved you so much and promised to find you." Ethan entered the attic, each step measured, slow. He stopped in front of Emily, looked at the diary, looked at her. "And you? Do you believe now?" Emily looked at him through her tears. "I don't know what to believe. This defies everything I know, everything I've learned. But when I read her words, I feel like they're my own, like I wrote them, like I am her." "You are her," Ethan whispered. He touched Emily's face gently, wiped away a tear with his thumb. "Isabella. Emily. It doesn't matter the name. It doesn't matter the time. Your soul is the same. And I recognize it, as I promised I would." Emily closed her eyes, felt his touch, felt the truth in him. And for a moment, just a moment, she let herself fall into the possibility, into the madness, into the love that transcended time. But then Lily entered her mind, her daughter, her responsibilities, her reality. She opened her eyes, pulled away gently. "Ethan, She shook her head. "Even if this is real, even if we were them, we can't. You have your world. I have mine. And they will never meet." "Why not?" Ethan asked, frustrated. "Why can't we try?" "Because you're my boss. Because I'm vulnerable. Because if this goes wrong, I lose everything. My job, my livelihood, Lily's therapy." Emily held the diary tightly. Isabella had privilege. She was a countess. Even when she lost Ethan, she had family. She had money. "I have nothing. If I lose you, I won't survive it again." "Again!" Ethan noticed the word, as if she remembered, as if she knew, and it broke his heart. Emily put the diary back in the box, wiped away her tears, straightened her hair, and went down from the attic, leaving Ethan alone, with the past, with the pain, with the love he couldn't reach. Again. And that's when she opened the box, Mercedes had said, and she opened it, and she found the truth. But the truth didn't set her free. It just made everything more painful, because now Emily knew that the love was real, that it transcended time, that 200 years erased nothing. And at the same time, she knew it didn't change her circumstances. It didn't change the social difference. It didn't change the fear. And that was even crueler. Knowing that your soulmate exists, but not being able to have them. Some people are going to pause here. They're going to need to process the impossible. Process the idea that true love can cross centuries, that promises can be kept through lives. If you're feeling that, if this story is touching something deep inside of you, use the super thanks. Because stories like this shouldn't exist, but they do, and they need to be told. Stories of connections that defy time, of souls that recognize each other, even when everything says it's impossible. Your super thanks keeps these stories alive, keeps the hope that, somewhere, your soulmate is also looking for you. Through time, through lifetimes. Ethan didn't give up. He couldn't, because something inside him, something older than his mind, deeper than his reason, screamed that Emily was his, always was, always would be, and he had to prove it, not just to her, but to himself, that he wasn't crazy, that reincarnation was real, that Isabella and Diego hadn't died, just been reborn. He sought help. But who do you ask for help when trying to prove past lives? Ethan found a psychologist specializing in regressive hypnosis, Dr. Ana Morales. She was 45 years old, had been practicing hypnosis for 20. She saw people who had inexplicable traumas, unreasonable fears, connections that didn't make sense, and sometimes, just sometimes, discovered they came from another life. Ethan scheduled a consultation. He went alone. He didn't tell Emily, because if it failed, if he didn't find anything, he didn't want to give her false hope. But if he did find something, if he saw, if he remembered, then he'd have proof. Proof that even Emily, with all her fear, couldn't deny. The session was on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan sat in a reclining armchair. Dr. Morales sat in front of him, laptop open, recording. "Why are you here, Mr. Blackwood?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Because I need to know if I'm crazy, or if reincarnation exists." Dr. Morales didn't seem surprised. "Tell me what makes you question it." Ethan told her everything. The birthmark, the dreams, Isabella, Emily, the diary, the inexplicable connection. And as he spoke, tears fell. Because saying it aloud made it real, made it vulnerable, made it urgent. Dr. Morales made notes, then looked at him. "I'm going to put you in a trance. I'm going to take you through regression. If there are memories of past lives, they will come. But Mr. Blackwood, you need to be prepared. What we find may be disturbing. It could change how you see the world, how you see yourself." Ethan nodded. "I'm prepared." But he wasn't. No one is prepared to see their own death. The hypnosis began. Dr. Morales used relaxation techniques, breathing, counting down. Her voice was soft, constant. Ethan felt his body relax, his mind let go. And then she asked, "Where are you?" The answer came automatically, without thinking, without a filter. "I'm in a prison." "What year is it?" 1820. "What is your name?" "Diego Fernandez." From that moment on, Ethan was no longer in the clinic. He was in Buenos Aires in 1820. He was another man, a poor musician, unjustly condemned, awaiting death. And he saw everything, felt everything, lived everything. He narrated it to Dr. Morales, every detail, the prison, the chains and the pain, the despair. And then Isabella entering, blue dress, eyes red from crying. She ran to him, Hums embraced him, cried against his chest. "I love you," she said. "In every life, I will love you." And he, Diego, the musician, responded through tears. "Look for me, by the moon, our sign." She kissed the birthmark on his neck, and he knew. He knew that in another life, she would be the one with the mark. She would be the one he recognized, and when that happened, he wouldn't let her go. Never again. Dawn arrived. Guards entered, dragged Diego out. Isabella screamed, held on, but was forcibly torn away. They took Diego to the public square. The gallows were ready, rope swaying in the wind, hundreds watching, waiting for the execution of the thief, the poor musician who dared to love above his class. And then in the clinic, 205 years later, Ethan screamed, a visceral cry, desperate. Because the moment they put the rope around his neck in 1820, he felt it. He felt the asphyxiation, the pain, the terror, and the last image he saw before dying was Isabella, in the middle of the crowd, falling to her knees, screaming his name, screaming that she loved him. Ethan woke from the trance violently, fell from the armchair, onto the floor, crying, screaming, hands on his neck as if he still felt the rope. Dr. Morales rushed to him, tried to calm him. But Ethan was in panic, because it wasn't imagination. It wasn't fantasy. It was memory. Real. Visceral. His. He had died in 1820, hanged, for loving Isabella, and she had promised to find him, and she had fulfilled it. In 2025. As Emily. With the birthmark, with the sign, with everything. Dr. Morales helped Ethan sit up, gave him water, waited for him to calm down. Then, with a careful voice, asked, "What did you see?" Ethan told her. Everything, every detail. Dr. Morales was silent, then played back the recording. And Ethan heard his own voice. But it wasn't his voice. It was different, an accent from the era. Old Spanish. Words that modern Ethan didn't know, but that Diego from 1820 used naturally. "You spoke in 19th century Spanish," Dr. Morales said, shocked. "I know 12 languages. I studied linguistics. This," she pointed to the recorder, "this is authentic. You couldn't have invented it. You knew details of the era that no one would know without extensively studying Argentine colonial history." "So it's real?" Ethan asked, voice broken. "I really died in 1820. I really was him." Dr. Morales hesitated, then nodded. "In my 20 years of practice, I've seen many cases. But this is the most convincing I've ever witnessed. Yes, Mr. Blackwood. I believe you were Diego Fernandez, and that Isabella, your Emily, was Isabella Salazar." Ethan cried again. But this time it wasn't despair. It was relief. Because he wasn't crazy, because it was real, because 200 years hadn't erased anything, and because finally he had proof. He asked for a copy of the recording, thanked Dr. Morales, left the clinic, but didn't go home. He went to Blackwood Manor, looked for Lily. "Where's Emily?" "In the kitchen," Lily replied. "But Mr. Blackwood, are you all right? You look..." Ethan didn't wait. He ran to the kitchen. Emily was there, preparing dinner. She turned when she heard hurried footsteps. "Ethan?" He stopped in the doorway, red eyes, pale face, trembling hands, holding a phone. "You need to hear this." Emily frowned. "Hear what?" "I had regressive hypnosis." Ethan entered the kitchen. "I went through past life regression, and I saw..." He stopped in front of her. "I saw everything. The prison, the execution, Isabella. I saw you promising to find me. I felt myself die." Emily recoiled. "Ethan, you're..." "Listen." He cut her off. He pressed play on the phone. The voice came out, but it wasn't Ethan's voice. It was similar, but different. Strange accent, old words. And it spoke about Isabella, about love, about promise, about the birthmark, about dying and being reborn, about finding each other again. Emily listened. Tears began to fall, because she recognized it. She recognized the words, the promises, as if she had heard them before, as if she had said them. The recording ended. Ethan put the phone away. The psychologist confirmed it. "I speak 19th century Spanish under hypnosis. I know details I never studied. I am him, Emily." He took her hands. "I am Diego Fernandez, and you're Emily Carter. And 205 years ago, we promised to find each other again. And here we are." Emily shook her head from tears falling freely. "This doesn't change anything. We're still..." She tried to pull her hands away. "I'm still poor. You're still rich. Still. And I still love you." Ethan cut her off. "Like I loved you in 1820. Like I'll love you in every life." He touched the birthmark on her neck. "This mark, it was my promise, and it's my certainty. You're mine. You always have been. And I'm not going to lose you again, but..." "No buts," Ethan said firmly. In 1820, your family separated us. Because I was poor, and you were an heiress. Now the tables have turned. I'm rich and you're... He paused. He saw it in her eyes. You're still an heiress. You're still Isabella. And I'm still your Ethan. And this time and no one will separate us, muchos I swear. Emily wanted to resist. She wanted to hold on to her fear, hold on to her reason. But her body betrayed her. Her heart betrayed her. Her soul betrayed her. And she fell. She fell into Ethan's arms. She fell into tears. She fell into acceptance. I lost you, she whispered against his chest. In 1820, I saw you die, and I died 6 months later. Of heartbreak, of pain, of longing. I know, Ethan hugged her tightly, but you won't lose me again. I promise. And in that embrace, in that kitchen, 205 years of separation ended, the souls finally together, the circle finally complete. But there was something more, a final test, something that neither Ethan nor Emily expected. That night, Ethan invited Emily to the music room of Blackwood Manor. It was a large room, a grand piano, guitars on the wall, violins in stands, a space where in 1820 Ethan Blackwood played for the high society of Boston, where Isabella listened to him, where they fell in love through music. Ethan picked up a guitar, took it off the wall, handed it to Emily. Play. Emily recoiled. I don't know how to play. I've never learned. Try, Ethan insisted. Emily hesitated. Then she took the guitar, held it. And something strange happened. Her fingers found the positions automatically, as if they knew them, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. She plucked the first string, perfect sound. She plucked the second, the third, and then, without thinking, she began to play a melody. Complex, ancient, beautiful. Ethan froze. That melody. He knew it. Not just knew it. He had composed it. In 1820. For Isabella. And here was Emily, who had never played the guitar in her life, performing it perfectly. How? Ethan whispered. Emily looked at her own hands in shock. I don't know. My fingers. They know. How is that possible? Because you've played before, Ethan sat down beside her. In another life. I taught you. I composed this song for you, and you would play while I sang. It was our song, ours. He touched her face. And you still remember. Your body remembers. If you didn't get goosebumps just now, comment goosebumps. Because Emily, who never played guitar, was playing like a professional. 200-year-old music, composed by Ethan Blackwood for Isabella Carter. And her fingers remembered, even when her mind didn't, because some things are etched into the soul, and the soul never forgets. Emily continued playing, tears falling as her fingers danced on the strings, and Ethan began to sing ancient lyrics, Old English, about impossible love, about eternal promises, about recognizing through a crescent birthmark. And there, in that room, Ethan and Emily weren't just playing music, they were closing a circle. They were healing a 205-year-old wound. They were fulfilling a promise that transcended death. When the music ended, Emily put the guitar down. She looked at Ethan, and for the first time since arriving at Blackwood Manor, she wasn't afraid. She was certain. I love you, she said, and it wasn't Emily saying it. It was Isabella. It was the soul recognizing. It was the promise being fulfilled. I love you, Ethan replied. Always have. Always will. They kissed, and the moment their lips touched, both saw. Flashes. Rapid. Intense. Of another life. Other kisses. Other embraces. They in 1820. Young. In love. Doomed. But together. Always together. When the kiss ended, both were crying. But it wasn't sadness. It was relief. It was peace. It was absolute recognition that their love had survived. Through death, through time, through everything. Ethan fell to his knees in front of Emily. He held her hands. I searched for you in every life, in every woman I met, in every look, in every touch, but no one was you, until now. He touched the birthmark on her neck. This mark guided me, as it promised it would. And now that I've found you, I won't let you go. Never again. Emily pulled Ethan up, hugged him tightly. We promised, in 1820, that we'd find each other. And here we are. Here we are, Ethan repeated. And they were. Two souls reunited. Two lives intertwined. A love that proved that death isn't the end. It's just an intermission. And that true promises never break. They just wait. Wait for the right moment, the right place, the right life to be fulfilled.